Eventually, Amleth discovers a sense of harmony with Olga, yet everlasting rest with the information that his line will proceed whenever he has gone to the corridors of Valhalla. It's all profoundly otherworldly, and it completely embraces the vicious devotion of the Vikings. Acclaimed director Robert Eggers' Third Element film takes viewers to 10th century Europe for a ruthlessly violent and serious retribution show. The film is his most aggressive undertaking yet and highlights past partners Anya Taylor-Joy, Willem Dafoe, and Katie Dickie, close by stars like Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, and Alexander Skarsgård, who stars as Prince Amleth. The Northman is a tale of retribution. The film depends on the very Viking story from the 13th century that propelled the Shakespeare stage play. Generally set in the year 914, The Northman recounts the account of Amleth, a prince whose father, King Ervandil, Ethan Hawke, is killed by Amleth's treacherous uncle, Fjolnir, Claes Bang. Amleth promises to get payback, driving crowds on an odyssey of severe clash, Viking heroes, and early Northern European and Icelandic kingdoms. While the genuine account of the Northman is somewhat direct and the extent of the film frequently looks like a major financial planned business blockbuster combatant, when the film arrives at its blood-soaked resolution, we understand that Eggers has accomplished something more profound, more unambiguous, and a ton stranger than your typical chronicled epic. Here is the breakdown and all that you really want to be familiar with the consummation of the Northman. In the Northman, crowds initially meet Amleth as a young kid who adores his father King Ervandil, Ethan Hawke, as well as the kingdom he hopes to acquire. That, obviously, doesn't work out as expected. Fjolnir's merciless takeover of Ervandil's kingdom sends young Amleth someplace far off, banished for good, and he doesn't arise again until some other time, presently a man and an individual from a fearsome Viking clan. For almost the whole of the Northman, Amleth is directed by three objectives: to vindicate his father, save his mother Gudrun, Nicole Kidman, and kill Fjolnir, Claes Bang, to procure his retaliation. As a grown-up, Amleth perseveres relentlessly to accomplish these objectives as he kills his direction through Fjolnir's town in Iceland. In any event, when obviously he might bite the dust all the while, the person embraces the possibility of death from injury on the combat zone as an individual triumph that will send him to Valhalla in the hereafter. Amleth risks really losing himself during the time spent accomplishing an objective he set for himself as a kid exclusively for the sake of retribution. At a certain point, Amleth saves a neckband given to him by his father so he can camouflage himself as a captive to draw nearer to Fjolnir, and at that time, he stops to act naturally. All things considered, he turns into a device of prophetic retribution. Amleth's gatherings with the seeress, Bjork, and other dreams let him know that his kids with Olga, Anya Taylor-Joy, will decide the kingdom that ought to have been Amleth's from now on. His fate lies on the combat zone with his uncle. At the point when Amleth really does at long last show up to get his prophetic payback, that's what we see. The Northman offers an untidy end that separates it from other retribution adventures. Amleth doesn't actually have a kingdom to get back to and take for his own when he grows up. In spite of the fact that Fjolnir assumed control over Ervandil's kingdom in a violent uprising, Amleth comes to discover that some time subsequently, Fjolnir himself was removed by another vanquishing Northern European king and had to take asylum in Iceland. Whenever Amleth goes to Iceland as a captive to observe Fjolnir, he isn't getting back to his own kingdom or, truly, any kingdom whatsoever. Fjolnir's space is only a little town in Iceland where he and Gudrun reside with their own child, Gunnar, Elliot Rose, Fjolnir's more seasoned child Thor, Gustav Lind, and a little gathering of town individuals and their slaves. Fjolnir has previously been lowered by outside powers when Amleth contacts him, and beside killing Ervandil a long time ago when he doesn't appear to be a terrible ruler. As a matter of fact, we see him showing Gunnar the significance of doing actual work close by the remainder of the town in a scene much the same as those of young Amleth and Ervandil from the get-go in the film. Whenever Fjolnir and Amleth at long last fight in straight-on battle at the foundation of a functioning spring of gushing lava they allude to as the gates of hell, Amleth in all actuality does at long last accomplish his objective of killing his treacherous uncle. In any case, considering the state Fjolnir is as of now and when Amleth contacts him, it's difficult to say how fulfilling arriving at this resolution really is. Robert Eggers depends entirely on Amleth's need to accomplish retribution for his father's death, no matter what, to satisfy his predetermination in the Northman. The film seldom proposes that Amleth will not accomplish that objective. As a grown-up, he is among the most over-the-top violent and fearsome soldiers portrayed in the film. In any event, killing a man bigger than himself when he is recruited to play what gives off an impression of being an early variant of the Irish game flinging. Whenever Amleth is caught by Fjolnir, his bondage is brief. Ravens discharge him from his bonds, recommending his retribution on Fjolnir isn't simply his own objective, yet a genuine fate offered to him by the Norse divine beings. Thus, Amleth climbs to Valhalla when he at last finishes his predetermination, connoted by the charging dreams of a hero riding a horse flying during that time sky. Amleth's retribution plays out even as he learns the truth of his family's presence was not his thought process. The film's most memorable demonstration suggests that Fjolnir keeps Gudrun despite her desire to the contrary after Evandil's death, yet in an astonishing turn, we in the end discover that it was Gudrun herself who plotted to kill Evandil, in light of the fact that it was a marriage she had been constrained into, making 33% of Amleth's expressed objectives toward the start of the film essentially outdated. This further underlines the manners by which the Northman messes everything up of an exemplary vengeance adventure. In addition to the fact that Amleth, driven by is irresolute, headed to satisfy his predetermination, yet we additionally discover that he doesn't have a reasonable thought of what his identity is really seeking vengeance for or why. At last, his own violent annihilation is the main way his story can end.